Colleagues, while we are waiting, would you share stories of what you and your library is doing to support the theme, Libraries Matter? Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Minister.
Hello.
Good morning, Mr. Mthethwa.
Hey, President, how are you?
I'm very well. All the better for seeing you, sir. How are you doing?
Good to see you too. Very well, thank you. Thanks so much.
You're very welcome. Thank you for joining us. This is a great honor. We have some technical difficulties, as Murphy's Law would have it, between the load shedding and various weather-related matters. We do apologize for the delay. We expect to start shortly. But if you don't mind, we'd really appreciate you being here and listening to the colleagues. We've asked them to share stories of what they're doing about Libraries Matter. So if you don't mind some entertainment in the meantime, we'll get the program on board as soon as possible.
Thank you so much. I'll be listening. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Who's going to go and share with us what they're doing for their libraries? There are 158 people on this call and me. Surely somebody would like to share something with us.
Good morning, Madam President.
Good morning, Shanita. I see. So you're very welcome. I'm all right, thank you. Notwithstanding the technical challenges, this is pretty much like our South African Library Week launches when we're in physical places, and the catering doesn't pitch and the mic doesn't work. So it's par for the course. But Shanita, tell us, what are you doing in KZN around
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. What we have started at Msunduzi Libraries is an online platform of storytelling, and it has been going amazingly well. We've started with the main library, and then we kind of extended it to all our branch libraries. So every week we have one person from a specific library doing a story in a different language. And this has taken on really well on the Msunduzi Library webpage. And it has brought sort of like a twofold recognition for the library services, because every single day we are getting people who are joining onto the site. They are part of it, and the wonderful comments coming through. And what we thought is, by focusing on a different library every week, people are getting to know of the libraries and where they are situated and who the staff are. So that has worked amazingly well for us. And we are just so happy with this project. And we've also started this now in terms of Libraries Matter, whereby we're just going out to the people and say, what does your library mean to you? And we are hoping to get that recording out soon. So we'll be very happy to share that as well. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you very much, Shanita, and congratulations to you and the colleagues from Msunduzi Library for what sounds like an amazing promotion of libraries and an exposition of the theme, Libraries Matter. Thank you. Nazim?
Okay, thank you very much, Nikki, for dealing with those awkward pauses while we're dealing with technical difficulties. We will commence with the program, and while we might experience one or two difficulties still along the way, I think we will start with the program and we will deal with it as best we can. Good morning once again, everybody, and welcome to the official launch of South African Library Week 2021. My name is Nazim Hadi. I am the President-elect of LIASA, and I will be the MC for the program today.
Are we load shedding at 12, guys?
Can I just ask that everybody, for the sake of, or for the duration of this program, can I ask everybody just to mute their microphones? And it will just make the broadcast that much easier for us. To the Honourable Minister of the Department of Sports, Arts and Culture, Mr. Nathi Mthethwa, the LIASA President, Ms. Nikki Krauster, members of the LIASA Executive Committee, members of the LIASA Representative Council, LIASA past presidents, the Chief Director of the National Archives and Libraries, Mr. Pulenka Kana, the National Librarian and CEO, Mr. Kepi Madumo, the AfLIA President and CEO of the South African Library for the Blind, Mr. Mandan Tumbela, members of the Portfolio Committee, members of the National Council for Libraries and Information Services, members of the Library Board, members of the Legal Deposit Committee, Namuthenwa Amwalwa from the National Information Workers Association of Namibia, past national librarians, directors and heads of library and information institutions, our speakers for this morning, LIASA members and friends of LIASA, an official welcome to this launch of South African Library Week. A very different kind of launch, and like many other things nowadays, life is really different. Again, as this is an online launch, we humbly request that all microphones are muted, except for the speaker where applicable. All comments are to be placed into the chat, and if needs be, we will respond to this during the course of the session. If you are tweeting or Facebooking or using any other social media, please do not forget to tag your posts with the official hashtags, namely SALW 2021 and Libraries Matter. Today's program is also being live streamed on our Facebook channel, and if you are watching via this medium, please note that there will be some lag, or there might be some lag on the broadcast, depending on the device that you are using, as well as the line speed of your internet connection. The possibility of load shedding, as you will all know, in your area will most likely have an effect on the broadcast for individual members. We also are aware of the possible interruption to university activities today, and this might also have an effect on the broadcast if you are joining us from an academic institution. Should any of these occurrences take place during the broadcast, please note that the recording will be available via the website and other channels. This past year has been a difficult year, and the last face-to-face event that LIASA hosted was actually this launch of South African Library Week 2020. Roughly 2 weeks later, lockdown commenced, and a year later, the world is a really different place. And I would like to ask that in honor of the friends and family that we have lost due to the pandemic over the past year, that we observe a moment of silence. Thank you very much. We will now go into the national anthem. We will start with the national anthem of South Africa, followed by the national anthem of the African Union.
Oh Let us all unite and celebrate together the victories won for our liberation. Let us dedicate ourselves to rise together to defend our liberty and unity. All sons and daughters of Africa, flesh of the sun and flesh of the sky, let us make Africa the tree of life. Let us all unite and sing together to uphold the bonds that frame our destiny. Let us dedicate ourselves to fight together for lasting peace and justice on earth. All sons and daughters of Africa, flesh of the sun and flesh of the sky, let us make Africa the tree of life. Let us all unite and toil together to give the best we have to Africa, the cradle of mankind, the font of culture, our pride and hope at break of dawn. All sons and daughters of Africa, flesh of the sun and flesh of the sky, let us make Africa the tree of life.
Thank you very much for joining us in the singing of the national anthems. While we often talk about COVID in, I think, often a very negative sense, not everything about COVID is necessarily to be viewed in that manner. This launch for us is an example. In the past, the launch event was held in a particular city, in a particular town that encompassed people that were in the nearby vicinity who could make it to that event. Here we are doing the launch online. It means more people can join us. Everybody can participate in the celebration. And surely that is something to celebrate. Our program today is divided into two halves. The first half is fairly formal program, very much like our face-to-face event normally follows. And the second half is slightly less formal. We hope that you will be able to stay with us for the duration of the program. And I hope that you will enjoy this morning with us. I now hand over to the President of LIASA, Mrs. Nikki Crowster, who will do the official welcome to this launch of South African Library Week. Nikki, over to you.
Sorry, Nikki. You are
Yes,
muted, my friend.
I see so, Betsy. Thank you so much for that. Let me start again. Good morning, everyone on the Zoom call. Mr. Program Director, allow me just to repeat some of the greetings that you issued. To the Honourable Minister, Nkosi Nathi Mthethwa, to the LIASA President, Nazim Hardy, members of the Executive Committee and the LIASA Representative Council, LIASA past presidents, the National Librarian and CEO, Mr. Kepi Maduma, the AfLIA President and CEO of the South African Library for the Blind, Mr. Mandla Ntombela, all members of the LIS profession in various roles, whether they be leadership roles or those in a practitioner function, you are welcome. All protocols observed. Welcome to the inaugural launch of South African Library Week in its online format, generously sponsored by the Department of Sports, Arts and Culture, and for which we extend sincere thanks. It is a difficult time in the world and in our country, and such continued support from the department is received by LIASA with the greatest of pleasure, with the greatest of responsibility, and with the assurance that we are using every cent responsibly and to advance the intentions of our country for the benefit of its population. The appearance of the SARS-2 virus and its mutations have spurred on many firsts, and I find myself more often using two words. One of them is inaugural, and as the program director indicated, this is the inaugural event of the online version of South African Library Week. On one hand, the online format allows us to make more widely the options to people to join the launch, which previously have been bound by the limitations of physical location. So one would need to travel there, and then there were a limited number of people. In some ways, it's not very different from the lockdown environment within which we find ourselves. On the other hand, the persistent inequalities in our country and in our sector place a dampener on us trying to reach everyone. But in this case, technology, although it is a digital divide, does help us to bridge that divide. And therefore, this event is being streamed live on Facebook, and there will be access to the recording subsequently. The other word in my autofill on my phone is condolences. On behalf of the Executive Committee and the Representative Council, allow me to share our condolences to all who have experienced bereavement. Our hearts go out to you, and we extend praise for the repose of the souls of those who have departed. The 2021 South African Library Week Organizing Committee under the able leadership of President-elect Nazim Hardy has done a fine job, and I thank each and every one of them for their efforts. They presented me with a fine list of why libraries matter. You would have seen that rationale by now. It makes for solid reading, and I urge you to act on it, either partaking of the services mentioned or making these happen. Libraries matter is a clarion call, a call to arms, if you like, in a world befuddled with misinformation and with fear as the COVID disease spreads into its third year. This call is being taken up by library and information workers who, despite the need to ensure that libraries did not become a vector for the spread of the disease, and therefore physical access had to be curtailed.
Can you just hang on a moment? Let me just stop this.
Thank you. If everyone could be muted, please. Thank you. I'd like to start that sentence again. Libraries matter is a clarion call, a call to arms, if you like, in a world befuddled with misinformation and fear as the COVID disease spreads into its third year. This call is being taken up by library and information workers who, despite the need to ensure that the spread of the disease is not done in libraries and therefore physical access had to be curtailed, have worked tirelessly in the face on the ongoing threat of infection so that services may continue and therefore underpin why libraries matter. Each contribution has helped to reaffirm why libraries matter, from the collect and drop-off services that are in play right now, to the digital storytelling that has become quite frequent online, to award-winning innovative digital library services. It is said in Africa that when spiders combine their webs, they can trap a lion. Our age-old continental wisdom further points out that an ant on its feet can do far more than an elephant on its back. Colleagues, This advice from our elders spurs us on in confidence to make this week a memorable one, not just to tick boxes, been there, done that, is a library week, finished, or for a report to AGM, but for us to continue to change lives in the best way possible so that each fellow human being has an equal shot at a rewarding and a meaningful life as described in the Sustainable Development Agendas. It is possible. We can do this with the help of libraries. Libraries matter. I wish you a successful, productive, and meaningful South African Library Week. Thank you for what you do for libraries and information services for our country and for our fellow human beings. And thank you for your contributions to LIASA. Be well. Thank you, Nazim.
Thank you very much to the President of LIASA, Ms. Nikki Crowster, eloquent as usual, for setting the scene for today. As I said again, I hope that you're going to enjoy the morning with us. Please stand by for a message of support from the President of IFLA, Mrs. Christine McKenzie. Throughout the course of this program, there will be messages of support, either showcased by video, or we will be reading out the message of support. This is the first of our messages of support for this event, and it is a video screening, and please stand by for that video. Thank you.
Great thing to celebrate librarians and libraries, and I really like your theme, Libraries Matter. In Australia, we acknowledge the owners of the land on which we meet. Today, I am on the traditional lands of the Wurundjeri people, and I pay my respects to their elders past and present. I'm Christine McKenzie, President of IFLA, the International Federation of Library Associations and Institutions. IFLA is the leading international body representing the interests of library and information services and their users, and is the global voice of libraries. IFLA has two main roles. Firstly, to advocate for libraries at the highest level, such as the United Nations, UNESCO and WIPO, and secondly, we are here to support the global library field. In these strange COVID times, IFLA is facilitating the exchange of information about how libraries are managing challenges and opportunities. And from this, we have heard of the personal impact of the pandemic on librarians, in particular the desire to keep the doors of libraries open, balanced against concerns for the health and welfare of community members and staff. And we've seen firsthand the impact on communities around the world where people have really missed being able to visit their local library. They have told us that libraries are so important in their lives for learning and reading, as a meeting place and as an antidote to loneliness, as well as for practical things such as access to Wi-Fi and PCs. Over the past year, libraries have been supporting the well-being of community members by providing access to books and delivering online events. There's been some very innovative programming underlining the role of libraries at the heart of communities. My presidential theme is Let's Work Together. I strongly believe libraries have to work together, locally, nationally and internationally. We also need to think strategically about partnerships with like-minded organisations and align ourselves with others who have the same goals and values. Congratulations to LIASA. Enjoy your celebrations and tell everyone you meet this week that libraries matter. Best wishes to you all and stay well.
We say thank you to the president of IFLA, Christine McKenzie, for that beautiful message. It is very much appreciated, and I think, like her presidential theme states, we do work together from a global to a local scale. And throughout the course of this program, you will hear the various messages of support from our strategic partners, starting with IFLA on an international scene. We will be moving to continental messages and then very much local messages. It now gives me great pleasure to introduce our special guest for this morning, an ambassador for South African Library Week, the extraordinary poet Lebo Mashile. She's the daughter of exiled South African parents, born in the United States, who returned to South Africa in the mid-1990s after the end of apartheid. She began to study law and international relations at Wits, but became more interested in the arts. Thank goodness for that. With Miesha Jenkins, Nsiki Mzwai, and Napo Mashini, she founded the poetry group Fila Sister. She appeared in the 2004 film Hotel Rwanda and has performed in a number of theatre productions, including Threads, which combine dance, music, and poetry. In 2005, she published her first poetry collection, In a Ribbon of Rhythm, for which she received the Norma Award in 2006. She released an EP in 2016, and she was named one of South Africa's Awesome Women of 2005 by Cosmopolitan and one of the top 100 youth in South Africa by the Mail and Guardian in 2006, 2007, as well as 2009. In 2006, she was named the top personality in television by The Star in their annual Top 100 list. And in 2007, she was the recipient of the 2007 of the City Press and Report Women of Prestige Award. And she was also named Women of the Year in 2010 in the category of Arts and Culture by Glamour magazine. She was cited as one of the top 100 Africans by New African magazine in 2011, and in 2012, she won the Art Ambassador Award at the inaugural Mbokodo Awards for South African Women in the Arts. She has performed at the opening of Parliament in 2009, and she has been described as probably the first name that comes to mind when thinking about a female writer making colossal waves in the poetry space. And that's probably why we invited her to grace us with her presence at the launch of South African Library Week. Enjoy.
Reba Mashile ba se godisa malekane mokibane wa monesa morale ngwana wa lepula na pula ha chabe. My name is Lebogang Mashile, and I have been given the wonderful privilege and responsibility of delivering an address to you at the beginning of Library Week, but also of being an ambassador for this year's Libraries Week, which is a task that is very close to my heart because books and libraries are very close to my heart. One of my favorite childhood memories is my mother taking me by the hand when I was in primary school and taking me to the library and getting a library card for me and showing me how to use the library. From there on out, the library became one of the most important spaces in my childhood. It was a free public space where I could go by myself. Books. At the time, I didn't understand that the tool that I was being given was a tool that was going to ultimately lay the foundation for the work that I would do for the rest of my life. But I knew in my heart that I loved this place because I could access these magical creations called books that allowed me to travel to worlds that I had never been before, that allowed me to meet characters that I understood, that I identified with, characters that I loved, sometimes characters that I hated, but people who I could encounter in the safety of my own imagination and in the safety of a place where I was guaranteed that I could come again and again and again and again and find new ways of expanding my mind. At the time, of course, I mean, these complex understandings of what books mean to me now were not there when I was 8 years old, but I knew that something very special was possible for me in that library, and for me and me alone, that I could give myself this gift every day of being able to walk to the library on the way home from school. And it was like a chocolate. It was like an adventure. It was a place of solitude, but also a place that challenged me mentally. And my relationship with books has remained the same. Books are still a treasure. Books are still tools that I use to expand my mind and expand my work. Books have helped me to understand myself. Books have helped me to understand the world. Books have helped my own words to travel to places and to people who need them the most. Books have been a survival tool for me. They have been a lifeline for me. In times in my life where I have been challenged, where I have been dealing with upheaval, escaping into a book has offered me refuge. There are characters whose challenges have mirrored my own, and characters, fictitious characters, and living characters whose lives have been documented in books, who have given me tools to be able to navigate my own life. South Africa is a very complex place. We know that this is so one of the major issues that cuts through every society when we went into lockdown, we realized that based violence and femicide go up, because for many people, being locked in the house means being locked in a confined space with people who harm you. This again makes books and safe public spaces, libraries, that much more important, because we that allow us to find tools and resources to be able to develop ourselves and to be able to solve our own problems. We know that libraries in our country are under-resourced. We know that books in our society are overpriced. In fact, you know, the cost of books in this country is almost criminal, considering the fact that we come from a historical legacy like Bantu education that denied in this country. The fact that we have not come up with a deliberate strategy to help the broader population understand the importance of books. We've not come up with strategies to bring the cost of books down. We've not come up with strategies to make literature accessible, to help people understand that literature is not alienating, that literature is not for certain people. It's not only for academics. It's not only for people who write like me or people who are involved in the literary arts, that literature is for everyone. If you read, you will be better at what you do no matter what you do. If you read, you'll be a better cook. If you read, you'll be a better parent. If you read, you'll be a better teacher, a better scientist, a better engineer, a better builder. No matter what you do, Books will enhance your ability to be able to do it. And this is also what makes libraries so important. The fact that there are places in our communities where we can access knowledge for free in a society like South Africa, where so many people have been systematically denied knowledge and where we have failed to address this legacy. It makes books It puts books and libraries at the forefront of addressing historical inequalities. Right now, we continue to battle with COVID-19 and the way that it has just completely changed our lives, the way that it's changed the way that we work, the way that it's changed the way that we interact. Of course, I'm delivering this address to you online instead of live because of COVID-19. And much of my work, I assume like your work, has also been forced to shift into this digital space. What does that mean for public spaces? What does that mean for books? I would love to see the notion of the library evolve and adapt. I would love to see more digital libraries. So many people are online on smartphones. I would love to see libraries become digital archives that people can be able to access on their phones. I would love to see more mobile libraries. I would love to see libraries in places where people are confined. I'd love to see more libraries in hospitals, more libraries in prisons. I think our understanding of the library also is being given an opportunity in this moment to adapt and to evolve the way that we have also adapted and evolved. But that doesn't change the importance, the absolute necessity of physical spaces within walking distance from every human being in South Africa and on the planet called libraries. Libraries are a refuge. If you are a child who is dealing with bullying or even challenges like physical and emotional abuse in your own home, having a physical space that you can escape to in order to escape into your imagination in a book, that's a safety net. That is a lifeline that we are giving to so many people across generations in our society. I wish that we could dispel the myth that books only belong to certain people. I wish that we could break down barriers to access, particularly the financial barriers to access for books for people. I wish that books in this country could be subsidized. I wish that there could be state intervention to bring down the cost of books. It is criminal that we pay so much for books in South Africa, that we pay more for books in South Africa than people do in the West. How is that even possible? Why is that possible? Even compared to other African countries, books in South Africa are incredibly expensive. And again, this points to the necessity, the absolute necessity of physical public spaces called libraries. I have made it my life's work to use words as a way of connecting with people. And archiving those words in the form of books is probably one of the most sacred things that I do of all of the many functions that I have as a human being in this life. Knowing that my words are going to be left behind in books that people will hold in their hands, or maybe one day even on their phones. That means a tremendous amount to me, because I know that books have sustained me, that books have helped me to understand my identity, books have helped me to understand history, books have helped me to develop my politics, books continue to help me to grow, to expand, they continue to help me to innovate in my life and in my work. Books are a love of books, a love of literature, access to literature. It's a life skill, it's as necessary as learning how to fall in love with exercise or with eating right. Books are an essential part of self-care. When I was much younger, when I first started working in my early 20s, I had the opportunity to work as a facilitator, as a life skills facilitator for out of work, out of school, young people like me in township communities across South Africa. So in places like Alex and Soweto, Tembisa, Elsie's River in Cape Town. And because I am a poet and because I love poetry, I used poetry and the creative arts as a way of being able to talk to people and to allow people to access deeper emotions, deeper parts of themselves. And I remember doing an exercise in one of our workshops with young people who were the same age as me, and using a book by Don Matera, one of my favorite books, A Zanyan Love Song. And these young people loved that work as much as I love that work, as much as I continue to love that work today. They loved these poems, and these poems resonated with them. And then we read the poems in the workshop, and then I printed some copies of the poems and asked people to go home and read them. And this was in Alexandra in about 2002, I think. And I found that when I asked people to go home and read, that they struggled to. And I didn't understand why. And then the one day I asked one of the participants, I can see that you are connecting with the work in the workshop, but why is it that when I ask people to go home and read that they don't? And she said, Lebo, I stay in a 3-room house with 8 other people. If I am reading at 8 o'clock at night and not watching Generations, then I'm being antisocial. It's like, I think I'm better than other people. And it dawned on me, it hit me like a ton of bricks that access, or the inability to access creates so many barriers. For a young person to go home and read a book is an act that can alienate them from the rest of their family, particularly if the rest of the family is battling illiteracy, hasn't been exposed to literature. Then this act looks like something that is dangerous, or that goes against the family norms, that pushes other people away because they cannot do the same thing. I wish that we could create programs in South Africa that could make literature accessible to families. A moment like that, looking back on it in hindsight, and I've reflected on this many times over the last nearly 20 years, that I wish I had gone in that moment and allowed or empowered, given these young people the tools to be able to share what I was asking them to read with their own families. So in other words, using literature and reading as an invitation instead of using it as a way of walling ourselves off and escaping. In a society where we know that intergenerational access has been denied to people in our communities, using books as a way of being able to build those bridges, as a way of being able to create conversations with families, as a way of being able to explore the difficult issues that we have to explore in order to heal our society. We are struggling with so many issues. We're struggling with violence. We're struggling with psychological and emotional trauma. We're struggling with depression and anxiety. We're struggling with developing an inner vocabulary for how to deal with all of these issues that are being compounded by COVID-19. COVID-19 has also made issues of inequality and access that much greater in our society. There's an opportunity here. And books form an essential part of being able to address those issues, because information is contained in those books that allows us to expand the way that we think, that exposes us to new ways of doing things, that exposes us to new ways of being. Books allow us to engage with our lives as a creative process. And that's something that is a gift that we give to ourselves every time we read. But perhaps as a society, we should start thinking about ways that we can use this knowledge that is contained in books as a way of giving information to others. So making reading a communal experience, making learning how to read a communal experience, destigmatizing the shame that comes with illiteracy, destigmatizing the shame that comes with having been educated by a system that educated you just enough to be a laborer. That's not your fault. That is the fault of the politics of our society. No one should have to be blamed for or should carry the shame of having been exposed to an inferior form of education that was designed to disempower you. We can use our challenges as opportunities to create a new way of interacting, of connecting through the desire and the hunger for information and for growth. And we can make books an essential part of that. I'd love to see public campaigns everywhere with people reading. I'd love to see public campaigns everywhere with children reading to adults, with adults reading to children, with public figures reading. Oh, I could go on and on and on about this because this is one of my favorite subjects, but I think perhaps the best thing for me to do is to explain what is in my heart through poetry. It takes just 26 letters to create a universe. The world is dismantled and then reassembled through the lens of a pen and verse. I have lost myself in books and then found myself in words, living in a prism of imagination. A prison of silence would be far worse. I've walked through the lives of individuals whose eyes I've never known. I've been to cities and villages and countrysides whose skies to me have never been shown. It was in this solitary cell that my greatest gift was honed. I saw that my mind was just a shell and its abyss simply a hole. And the hell of a heaving heavy heart is still my friend. Every story has its place, and history never ends. The writer is a visionary, architect, a godchild at play on a canvas of memories. She lies naked between the covers, her own lover, her own worst enemy. Navigating between these extremes, she is both the judge and the judged, the vile, despised, and attacked, the unashamedly beloved, the ever-listening friend who'll tell your business when you're not in sight. She pulls the mind's commotion out of stillness in the cavern of the night. And South Africa is a fractured mirror, a paradox of schizophrenic selves who don't talk to one another, who coexist together but don't live with each other, who fear each other, who revere each other, who loathe and pretend and try to blend in with each other. And this is the time when you can become the greatest substance of your dreams unless you live in a shack and don't speak English and don't know what this poem means. Tell me how it's possible for people who walk on gold to not know how to read. Tell me how publishers who will never taste our tongues can comprehend the words that our people need, because we have never been scared of stories, the ones who uttered the very first. The ones who hand them to our children, calling the rivers of their self-worth, the ones who will write the narrative in the ear, but who dare not call the ear a page. The ones who rhyme without pens and perform without a stage. I don't have all the answers. I'm just a colonized African with a funny American accent who breaks down the Queen's English until Sesotho understands it. Still, I'm compelled to comprehend those who don't inhabit my language. I wonder if trials and translations could help them to traverse my landscape. South Africa is an old-fashioned mutt who knows how to sing and knows even better how to cuss, who knows how to pray when she's about to run out of luck, who knows how to laugh really hard when the tears have run her into a rut, who knows that race is a farce because when the lights are off, everybody's fucked. And when the welts and wounds demand healing salve, words are just enough. It is my honor to be your ambassador for Libraries Week this week. Have a wonderful week going forward. Thank you for the work that you do, putting books in the hands of our people. Thank you for the work that you do, expanding the minds of our people. Thank you for this visionary work. You're building the future with what you do. You're building the future every time a human being walks into the door of the library. And if no one says thank you to you, I'd like to say thank you to you today. The work that you have done has built me, and for that I am forever grateful.
Wow. I don't know what to say. I actually am feeling all the feels at the moment. I literally have goosebumps. That was absolutely amazing. And we tried to initially get her for the LIASA in Durban a couple of months ago, and Lebo was not in the country. She was unavailable at the time. And in response to me, her manager had said, you know, she really wants to do something with us in the future, and hopefully we'll be able to do something. And it was worth the wait. Words fail me. Thank you very much, Lebo. That was, I think, more than any of us expected. And I hope that this is not the last that we will be able to share in your wonderful presence and your wonderful words. And as librarians and information workers, we bow down to your amazing talent and your love letter to libraries and librarians. It's not the break yet, but I wish it was the break, because I actually think I need a break. But the program needs to go on. So unfortunately, I've got to break the spell a little, and we've got to move on with the program. We are running behind, as you would know. And I must just say at this point, I do apologize for the technical difficulties that are ongoing. We're trying to sort it out as best as we can, and I hope that you will bear with us. My apologies for that. Sure, I've got to regroup and kind of just get back onto the program. It now gives me great pleasure to read a message of support from Mr. Mandla Ntumbela, previous president of LIASA and the current president of AfLIA, the African Library and Information Association, and institutions. It is indeed a great honor and privilege to deliver this message of support on behalf of the African Library Information Association institutions, AfLIA. AfLIA is the trusted voice of the African library and information community in Africa's development, and she exists to empower the library and information community to actively promote the African development agenda through dynamic services that transform livelihoods. We have passed through recent strange times as organizations and individuals. Uncertainty pervades the present and future. In all these, the generation, processing, sharing, use, and adaptation of information has not ceased. Rather, there has been a great increase of information churned out, disseminated, and imbibed as people continue to seek ways to understand and or mitigate the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. The UN coined the word disinfodemic to define the excess amount of distorted and misleading information that has been spread about the pandemic and which in itself has become an epidemic of disinformation. This infodemic has great capacity to spread fear and panic, which hinders the containment of COVID-19. Africa, with a below average global literacy rate, is hard hit as false information is liberally spread through various forums to many who lack the skills to critically evaluate information. This scenario sends a clear message that libraries are critical, as librarians are the core professionals with competencies to check this infodemic locally, nationally, and throughout Africa. Therefore, as LIASA celebrates the 2021 South African Library Week, AfLIA salutes all librarians and library workers and urges all to be cognizant of the fact that librarians can rise to the occasion by using our professional skills to check this infodemic. AfLIA also identifies with LIASA as she continues to promote the importance of libraries, because libraries do matter. Viva LIASA, viva, viva AfLIA, viva. We say thank you very much to the AfLIA president, Mr. Mandla Ntumbela, for that beautiful message of support. I am watching all the messages coming through, thanking Lebo for her wonderful talk. Please continue sending those messages through. If you're watching on Facebook, please send your messages through as well, and welcome to all of those who have joined us via the Facebook live stream. As the president of LIASA noted earlier, our main sponsor for the launch of South African Library Week is the Department of Sports, Arts and Culture. The ongoing support from the department ensures the continuation of planning projects such as the launch of South African Library Week, as well as our annual LIASA conference every year. The provision of access to public libraries play a huge role in the deliverables of the department, and the library service of 2 of our major metros contribute to the successes of the sector. Next up, we will be showcasing 2 videos, one from the City of Cape Town's Library and Information Services Department, and one from the City of Joburg's libraries, both public libraries and in many ways beneficiaries of support from the Department of Sports, Arts and Culture. Please stand by and enjoy these videos created for this event and for Library Week. Thank you.
Well, the library is a haven of peace. There's so much stress outside the walls of the library, especially in these times. And then you come in here and it's peaceful and it's conducive to integration, which is also peaceful. And you are helped with excellent staffers. What more could one want?
My een stokperdjie is, ek is baie lief vir boeke. Dis my passie.
Library program ibalulekile ngoba besithi xa ndifuna ukwenza homework okanye ndifuna information internet kwifowuni yakwazi ngena kwi-free wifi lapha smart cape.
Ek lees baie. Ek het altyd gehou van boeke. So ek vind dat eerstens ek hou baie van die dames by die voordesk en ek gesels altyd met hulle. Ek vind dis altyd baie interessante mense en ek hou van mense. So vir my is dit nie net kom haal boeke nie.
So I have 2 small daughters. The oldest one has just started grade 1 and the youngest one is almost 2. And the library is a very important part of how we spend our afternoons. So we can walk here and instead of buying books for them every month, I bring them here and we choose new books every 2 weeks. And that's just been a big part of their lives. I love to read and it's something that I'd like to instill in them.
I-library ibaluleke kakhulu in terms of uyakwazi uba mawufika apha e-library uze kwi-internet kwi-smart cape. Kwi-smart cape uyakwazi ukuguglisha izinto zakho ozifunayo like imisebenzi uba ufuna uba in terms of mna ndine-company enivulayo ndiyakwazi uba mandingene kwi-website in the research ndiyakwazi ukwenza ne-business planning ndiyakwazi ukwenza izinto ezininzi eziqhubekekayo in terms of i-library. Kukho nabantwana abakwazi uba mathini benze nee-homework zabo ba-research into ezininzi.
Libraries matter because books have become very expensive. And I myself personally found that I tend not to buy books for myself. Because as adults, most adults don't tend to reread books, whereas kids do. So then I actually would spend more money on buying books for my kids. But you know, you can't always keep up because kids grow, and so compared to when I was a kid, the titles that are available are so much more extensive. And libraries have actually done a good job in keeping up with the relevant titles. So then sometimes you can actually get them to read the books that they want from, you know, getting books from the library, than actually having to buy the books. So that's actually been, I found, quite cool since, you know, since my kids have been young.
Library balulekile. Libraries matter.
Libraries matter.
Biblioteke maak saak. Glo my.
In March 2020, life as we knew it changed. And libraries were one of the entities affected by this change. Libraries were forced to close due to the global pandemic. This meant there could be no in-house programs, no story times, no holiday programs, no programs of any kind. This was very sad. One of the City of Johannesburg's librarians offered to do a digital story time, and her offer was accepted. The first digital story time was presented on the 23rd of April 2020, and it proved to be a resounding success. There were 2,000 views on the first day. The story times are presented on the City of Johannesburg's Facebook page. Other librarians followed suit, and there was soon a variety of different story times being presented. Some librarians wrote and published their own storybooks and then presented them on Facebook, and others did vernacular story times in various African languages. And these all proved to be very successful. And the digital story times are still continuing to this day. In July 2020, it was found that, of course, holiday programs couldn't be held as the libraries still had to be closed. A craft video was presented demonstrating how to make various children's crafts, and this was very successful, as the children were able to make their own crafts at home using in-house items such as cotton wool, pencils, glue, things that were easily accessible. These videos have continued in a program called Libraries Get Crafty, where children are shown how to make things related to different themes, such as Halloween, or back to school, or library week, all sorts of things like that. And these have been fun and successful with the children. We've also done 2 adult Libraries Get Crafty videos, where they've been shown how to make a pillowcase, how to make a quilted placemat, and these have been in line with the City of Johannesburg's entrepreneurship drive, where people are able to make and sell these items. Libraries have always had storytelling at their heart, books and storytelling. And we've been so pleased to be able to continue to provide a service to the community, being able to present story times and craft activities and things that would still engage the community. Libraries are going to continue with these programs in the future, as we've been able to reach a far wider audience than we ever imagined possible. City of Johannesburg libraries have been presenting and bringing stories to the world.
We thank the City of Cape Town Library and Information Services Department, as well as Joburg Libraries, for those inspiring videos. And I think it demonstrates the tenacity of libraries and librarians to continue despite what has been happening around us. And this leads me into the introduction of the Minister of Sports, Arts and Culture, Mr. Nathi Mthethwa. I call upon the President of LIASA, Ms. Nikki Crowster, to introduce the Minister. Nikki, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Program Director. Colleagues, the current LIASA presidential theme is libraries advancing development through collaboration, partnerships, and innovation. Therefore, it is a pleasure, alongside the honor, to introduce the keynote speaker for our 2021 South African Library Week launch. A friend of LIASA's, whose department provides partnership and support for our professional body and association, thereby giving us the tools to advance the intentions of the presidential theme, as well as the SA Library Week theme, Libraries Matter. Mr. Nathi Mthethwa is the Minister of Sports, Arts and Culture of our country, the Republic of South Africa, since May 2014. He is a member of the National Executive Committee of the African National Congress, a member of the ANC National Working Committee, and an active member of the King Dingiswaya branch of the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal. It is a privilege to have Minister Mthethwa on board. Sir, you are most welcome, and we listen with avid ears to your wisdom. Thank you.
Thank you so much, President, with that, with those kind words of introduction you've made. And good afternoon to everyone who's with us here today. It has indeed been a very empowering morning listening to our fellow guests raising quite important matters through their addresses. Perhaps I would have to start by greeting the President, LIASA President, Ms. Kauster, the LIASA President-elect, Mr. Nazim Hadi, LIASA immediate past President and Director of South African Library for the Blind, Mr. Ntombela, members of the Council for Library and Information Services, members of the Legal Deposit Committee. And I want especially to greet the IFLA President who has addressed us earlier on, and our sister, Lebo Mashile. Members of the public and everybody who's with us here today, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I extend my warmest greetings to everyone who's tuned in today as we launch the South African Library Week celebrations 2021 under the theme Libraries Matter. So it is my pleasure to help kickstart this year's celebrations of Library Week. I think LIASA has chosen a sobering theme to remind all of us that even during the pandemic, libraries matter. The outbreak of COVID-19 has disrupted the whole world in many ways than we could imagine before March 2020. And this global pandemic has transformed everything as we know it, and libraries were not going to be an exception. So the very nature of what libraries are and do has impacted, and the sector has been forced to re-evaluate not only services, but how these are delivered to our user communities, and also the manner in which libraries will operate in the future. But despite this upheaval, many libraries have managed to operate in novel ways in order to remain present and relevant in the lives of their user communities. They have stayed true to the role, but embraced the new, from online storytelling to establishing remote access to databases, from curbside pickups to online programming. Libraries are succeeding in continuing to provide a service to their communities. Yet, despite gains, access to information and resources has been severely curtailed in all types of libraries, whether school, academic, public, or special libraries. Restrictions on a number of on-site users and rising data costs have also had a significant impact. But despite all these hurdles, access to information remains important during these times, and the role of libraries remain fundamental in shaping their lives. It was so in the earliest of our modern times, and it is so even now. Libraries bring with them a spirit of intellectualism and a culture of reading. They reflect the ideas and directions taken by empires, by nations, and by states, amongst others. They create spaces for debate and inspire others to write their own books in order to influence the world. The earliest libraries in the world have been found on this, our beloved African continent. The Great Library of Alexandria, established approximately in the 3rd century BC, was meant to house all the books in the world in its times. Its scrolls were so many that a smaller library to house the overflow was established in the nearby temple of Seraphis, and it attracted scholars from far and wide. Now, Richard Juggins and Eunice Mominite, in an article, The Ancient Libraries of Africa, point out that, and I quote, "More than a library, the institution was the prototype of the modern university or research center, with columned walkways, a communal dining room, lecture halls, and a library itself. Among scholars who worked there were Euclid, the great mathematician, Strato, the physicist, Archimedes, and Aristarchus, who posited a heliocentric theory of the planetary system 1800 years before Copernicus, close quote. Later, a great library was established in Sacred Monastery in Sinai, Egypt, and this 6th century building still today houses a collection of more than 3,000 manuscripts. It is said to house the world's oldest Bible and the most important Christian monastic collection. Its texts are mainly written in Greek, but also in local and other languages. These include Arabic, Syriac, Georgian, Slavonic, as well as manuscripts in Polish, in Hebrew, Ethiopian, American, Latin, and Persian. The establishment of the Great Library of Timbuktu in the 1300s is another important milestone in Africa's quest for an intellectual and literary culture. We're told that the city was already an important site for learning and culture when Musa I, upon returning from Mecca to Mali, fell in love with the city and decided to set up his library there. And of course, where there were books, there would be booksellers, traders, authors, performers, and illustrators. So an entire creative economy based on book production could flourish. We need to remind ourselves of these developments across time and space as today, and inspired as we expand way libraries must be used in these difficult times we find ourselves in. From the matter of access to the quest for affordable and quality internet, the COVID-19 environment demands much of us. The rationale for closing digital divides and the necessity for universal access has never been starker. Libraries and other information agencies also have an important role to play in reducing the potential misinformation about COVID-19 itself. It is my considered view that the libraries should play an active part in the dissemination of government information in all languages and in all available formats and platforms. This will enhance the understanding of COVID-19 and raise public awareness about this deadly disease. Each year, the celebrations of the South African Library Week occur in the context of Human Rights Month commemorations. The theme for this year's commemorations is the year of Charlotte Maxeke, promoting human rights in the age of COVID-19. We remember the birth of Ma Maxeke with her colleague and comrade, Dr. John Langalibalele-Dube, who was the founding President General of the governing party today, the African National Congress. These two African patriots who would have been turning 150 years this year had they lived, went on to distinguish themselves during lifetime in service of humanity. We remember their activism, pioneering spirit, and torchbearer status. Charlotte Maxeke was an advocate for racial and gender equality and inspired countless of men and women alike to work in support of social justice. Let us also be cognizant of the fact that amongst their contemporaries were the novelists Herbert Lomo and Tsekiso Platki, to mention but a few. Both of them also activists in their own right. Lomo published an African tragedy, amongst other books, the first South African novel to be published by a Black South African. Platki's novel, Mhudi, amongst his books, was also the first novel to be written by the Black South African, although Lomo pipped him to the post in terms of getting his book published. Later, in 1937, Lomo would take on the role of a librarian for the Carnegie Non-European Library. For Lomo understood the need for libraries, and I quote from his statements, open quotes. Librarians are the roots and the fruits of civilization. They should promote the use of good material and make it available. They are the people's university. The part they play in the life of a country was beyond estimate. Many men with little formal education had become great minds through the use of libraries. To solve the problems of the world requires the dissemination of knowledge. Close quote. This was the rich cultural milieu in which Charlotte Maxeke and J.L. Dube found themselves. Perhaps it is appropriate during this time of the pandemic to reflect on these wise words. Never before have we needed ideas more than we do now. Never before in our lifetime have we had to grapple with what we do right now at this moment. How then can the library sector reposition itself to ensure equality in access, inclusivity in purchasing of content, and nurturing a sense of shared national identity whilst battling with the impact of COVID-19? It is critical that in honor of Charlotte Maxeke, we collectively strive to combat racial discrimination, xenophobia, gender-based violence and femicide, and other related intolerances. And we are well aware that for us to combat such social ills, we as a society need to be friends of the libraries. Despite the economic challenges facing our country, government is committed to support the library sector to ensure continued provision of services to citizens. An amount of 1.4 billion rands is earmarked in 2021-2022 to, amongst other priorities, continue to provide and improve public library infrastructure, including information communication technologies purchasing of library material in all formats, including material for print disabled readers. The department is planning to support building of 26 new libraries in this financial year. The delivery of public library infrastructure provides a solid foundation for socially cohesive communities and lifelong learning. The partnership established with provincial departments enables the delivery of learner support material to schools to enhance teaching and learning. Literacy forms an integral part of the promotion of social cohesion. The department, in collaboration with the National Library of South Africa and the University of South Africa's Department of Information Science, will host National Reading Summit later this month. The theme for the summit is, and I quote, strengthening the reading ecosystem, close quote. The summit seeks to explore the reading practices in the country, the continent, and globally, and to strengthen the reading programs and initiatives. The summit will provide a platform for exchange of experiences and dialogue on mechanisms to inculcate a culture of reading in our communities and showcase effective reading programs of specific age groups. In conclusion, I would like to declare South African Library Week celebration for 2021 open. I wish success as we campaign for making reading a lifestyle choice. To the professionals and the practitioners in the library and information services sector, I leave you with a quote from our first democratic president, Nelson Mandela, when he said, and I quote, "Everyone can rise above their circumstances and achieve success if they are dedicated to and passionate about what they do." Hashtag Libraries Matter. And thank you for your attention.
We say thank you very much to the Honourable Minister, Mr. Nathi and Mthethwa, for that inspiring message during the launch of South African Library Week. We appreciate your presence here with us today, and we appreciate the sentiments expressed during your speech, and know that libraries will continue to strive to build a better South Africa. Libraries do indeed matter, and librarians do indeed matter. We're now going to go for a break, and this break is sponsored by Van Schaik. So during this break, there'll be a video by Van Schaik, and the break will be for 5 minutes, and then we will be back and we will continue with the launch of South African Library Week. Thank you very much for being with us. Welcome back, colleagues. And we say thank you to Van Schaik for sponsoring that break. And know that you did not have a technical problem. It did not necessarily have sound on, so don't think that there was anything funny with that video. Okay, our program continues, and as I said at the beginning, our program is split into two parts. The very formal section, which was what was taking place before the break, and I really hope that you did enjoy it. And we now have slightly less formal program, and I hope that you will be able to stay with us, because as you know, we are running a bit late, but we hope that you'll be able to stay with us as long as you can to enjoy the second part of our program. The program has a couple of messages of support, a couple of videos offering those messages, a couple of readings, and we hope that you will enjoy this section as much as you did the first one. We're going to start off with a message of support, this one by the National Council for Library and Information Services Chairperson, Dr. Naresh Sentu. I'm going to read it on his behalf. On behalf of the National Council for Library and Information Services members, it gives me great pleasure in presenting a message for the annual celebration of libraries during South African Library Week. The theme Libraries Matter is a very apt and relevant one, as libraries have survived wars and catastrophes. In line with this theme, an extract below from the draft national policy for LIASA in South Africa clearly highlights why libraries matter. And I quote, "For the majority of South Africans, the lack of information and knowledge is an impediment to their own development. This state of affairs is due not only to scarce material resources, but also to a lack of appreciation for the development role or the developmental role which the library and information sector plays. There is no more important development policy than one oriented towards eradicating information literacy and building a modern, efficient, and equitable library and information system. Government, together with its social partners, the private sector, civil society organizations, households, and international aid agencies should support this. It is in the national and global interest to make South Africa an informed and information literate nation." End quote. Currently, the National Council for Library and Information Services is embarking on strategic planning in the following focus areas: NCLIS as an executive body, school library policy, LIASA education and training, infrastructure and connectivity, literacy and information programs, and awareness campaigns. It is the Council's goal to ensure that the outcome of these aspects will contribute immensely to the development of the country and ensure that libraries matter. In all of these efforts, NCLIS is aware that the current COVID-19 pandemic is presenting numerous challenges across the world, and although libraries matter, there needs to be renewed efforts to operate in the new normal and make libraries matter even more. To this end, NCLIS urges all library services in the country to make libraries matter even more by re-engineering their services. In doing so, the new term e-everything must be adopted. Virtual library services have to be the order of the day. Remote working for the staff must be possible. Libraries will have to negotiate deals with vendors to be able to access online resources at discounted rates in order to provide a valuable service. Whilst connectivity and data costs are exorbitant, libraries should form partnerships with external agencies to be able to deliver remote services to the user. Of course, libraries must ensure that staff have the resources, equipment, and training to offer remote services. Libraries can borrow from the fast food industry and provide drive-through pickup and return facilities, as well as develop self-service models within COVID-19 protocols. In addition, library staff who cannot undertake remote work for whatever reason should be released to partner with the Department of Health to assist with contact tracing and COVID-19 health promotion in the communities that they reside in. In closing, library associations must play a huge role in making libraries matter, especially in the time of a pandemic. The association needs to provide support to its constituencies, should be actively involved in the dissemination of relevant information, facilitate communication and cooperation between the various LIA structures in the country to help each other and share ideas in order to develop a national LIS COVID-19 strategy. All the best for the South African Library Week. Keep up the good work, LIASA. And it ends off with a quote, and I quote, saying that you don't need a librarian because you have the internet is like saying you don't need a math teacher because you have a calculator. We thank Dr. Naresh Sentu, the chairperson of NCLIS, for that message. It now gives me great pleasure to hand over to Nokuthula Musa, who is the Executive Director for Core Programs at the National Library of South Africa, who will deliver a message of support from the CEO and National Librarian of the National Library of South Africa, Mr. Kepi Mudumo, who unfortunately could not be with us today. Nokuthula, if you could turn on your mic and then deliver your message, we would appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much for the opportunity. And I would like to first greet the Honourable Minister who is present in this celebration of our South African Library Week, and also to greet all the LIASA presidents, the current and the former presidents of LIASA, and the chairperson of NCLIS, and all protocols observed. I'm reading this message on behalf of our CEO and the National Librarian of South Africa, Mr. Kepi Mudumo. The message reads thus: it is my pleasure and a great honor for the National Library of South Africa to partake in the launch of the South African Library Week 2021. When we launched South African Library Week in 2020 in Kagiso, we did not foresee that libraries would be obligated to close their doors to the public for the most part of the year in adherence to national lockdown regulation. The unprecedented coronavirus pandemic has transformed the libraries and the connection of users to the resources they need. Libraries are a cornerstone of their communities and among our nation's most important knowledge institutions. I am therefore pleased that the Library and Information Association of South Africa, LIASA, has placed the focus on why libraries matter, and especially now amid the coronavirus pandemic. Like many other libraries, to ensure that the NLSA matter, especially in meeting the information needs of our users, we have adapted and expanded accessibility of our service offerings during this challenging time. Some of our initiatives include a fast pickup service where library users email their request to our librarians and then collect the materials at an agreed upon time. Our librarians continue to offer one-on-one research and reference services via telephone and email. We also have Ask a Librarian service where users can connect with librarians on WhatsApp in real time. As the National Library of South Africa, in terms of events, we have made huge strides in taking traditional face-to-face events into virtual platforms. We had a number of online events hosted, including the World Book Day celebration last year. We had a poetry slam competition. We had a webinar commemorating the World Digital Preservation, and we continue to conduct RDA and legal deposit training workshops using the virtual platforms. Ladies and gentlemen, the NLSA is proud to announce, I would like to echo the words of the Minister. We are also proud to, just to re-emphasize, to announce the inaugural three-day National Reading Summit on the 24th to the 26th of March, which will be held virtually under the theme, Strengthening the Reading Ecosystem. I'm going to share the website and urge colleagues and fellow members of LIASA to register and to also spread the word to colleagues who are not part of the celebration. And people can register on the website www.readingsummit.co.za. Please register. I would like to see familiar faces during the celebration or during the Reading Summit. I'm not going to cover the part the Minister has already covered with regards to that. So we just look forward to your participation. And towards closing, the NLSA will continue to link hands with like-minded stakeholders in support of initiatives that promote library services and the library and information services sector at large, whether it is walking through the doors or using our online services. Libraries matter as hubs and where information needs of our communities are met. I thank you.
Thank you very much for that message on behalf of the CEO and National Librarian of the National Library of South Africa. And we continue thanking the NLSA for hosting the LIASA National Office on its premises, even though we are not at the office at the moment and the staff works via work from home and remote services. We are always grateful for the hosting of the national office at the NLSA. I will now read a message of support from the South African Library of the Blind, as provided by the CEO, Mr. Mandla Ntombela, who is also the current AfLIA president and the immediate past president of LIASA. I extend words of appreciation and gratitude to LIASA for this official launch of South African Library Week 2021 under the challenging times of COVID-19. It is indeed a great honor and privilege to deliver this message of support on behalf of the South African Library for the Blind. The South African Library for the Blind is mandated in accordance with the South African Constitution and the South African Library for the Blind Act 91 of 1998. It is legally committed to the values upon which the democratic South African state is founded and to those of equality, human dignity, the advancement of human rights and freedoms, non-racialism, non-sexism, accountability, and democracy. In addition, it strives to contribute to Africa by being an available resource of advice and expertise. In support of the above, the South African Library for the Blind has managed to establish more than 139 mini libraries in all provinces within the country and has positioned its spaces between aspiration and delivery by also providing resources that support education for the blind and Braille training for information workers and its members within the served communities according to their needs. It is part of the strategic plan of the South African Library for the Blind to actively establish library service points for blind and visually impaired people as close as possible to where these people are residing. Within the South African Library Week theme, Libraries Matter, we allude to the theme by saying, reading is not an option for the blind and visually impaired community, but it is a way of life. Sighted people have various options to choose from when it comes to reading and entertainment and the likes. The same freedom of choice is not always available for the blind, as they are print disabled, so the availability of reading material to support the educational, cultural, and recreational needs is therefore imperative. The production of sufficient reading materials, as well as limited access to available reading materials, is an ongoing concern requiring innovative approaches. Removing any obstacles in this process is therefore imperative to broaden the scope of information dissemination. Currently, the South African Library for the Blind is championing and pioneering studios for audio materials where authors and community members will narrate the books and create more disabled content. The pilot of this kind of a project will be launched during this week at Untitled Library in the Eastern Cape, like we did with the mini library concept, and will seek to expand the studios to all other provinces in the near future. This is the first of a kind for the library. Apologies for that. This is the first of its kind for the library, and we are very proud of having achieved this goal by working in partnership with the Eastern Cape Department of Sport, Recreation, Arts and Culture. It is through these partnerships and collaborations that we can jointly further the ideals of furthering knowledge and service delivery models that will benefit the blind and visually impaired. In the end, it is about rendering a seamless library and information service to all, regardless of who that person is. Let us live our lives by celebrating every moment we have as we celebrate libraries. Let's celebrate South African Library Week in full force and with style. We say thank you to Mr. Mandla Ntombela, CEO of the South African Library for the Blind. It now gives me great pleasure to turn the screen over to a reading by Professor William Gumede. If you will bear with me, and if you attended the Indaba, you will know about Professor William Gumede. He is the #1 best-selling author of nonfiction adult and children's fiction books. His children's books include A Kite's Flight, Crystal Kite, That's Better, Upside Down World. And Upside Down World is used by KPMG as part of its flagship citizenship program to encourage reading and combat childhood illiteracy. In 2016, he was invited by UNICEF to contribute to their Tiny Story series to pen a short story on the theme of What I Want for Every Child to celebrate the organization's 70th anniversary. His adult nonfiction include the #1 bestsellers Thabo Mbeki and the Battle for the Soul of the ANC, Special Commendation, UNESCO Normal Literary Prize, Restless Nation, Making Sense of Troubled Times, Editing and New Introduction to Nelson Mandela, No Easy Walk to Freedom, the new introduction to Asata, the FBI's Most Wanted Woman, and South Africa in BRICS. Ladies and gentlemen, Professor William Gumede.
This story is a story I wrote for a special project for the African Storybook Project. And the story, the book is only available online, and in time will be a paper book. And the book is called Upside Down World. And the illustration was done by Vusi Malindi. The book came out in 2020. One day, the son had so much fun, he refused to go to bed, and he wanted to stay up longer. This caused so much trouble that the whole big world was turned upside down. It was one of those happy summer days, meant only for play. Mamas and papas were standing, sitting, and strolling about. Children small and tall were playing in the sands, in the beaches, grass, and in the water. Some were cycling, some played ball. Everyone was jolly. The sun beamed down from high in the sky. Looking down, he glowed with pleasure to see everyone having such a good time. Nothing pleases him more than the chorus of happy children and the laughter of happy children. But clocks all over the world were ticking towards day's end. I can't go to bed now, the sun thought. It will spoil everyone's fun. The sun did not want to be a spoilsport. I'm staying put, he said. It was fast approaching the time when mamas and papas called children for cleanups. It was time for children to wave goodbye to friends. It was getting to the dreaded bedtime. But the sun was not moving. He stubbornly remained rooted at the same spot. Normally, the shadows would grow longer now, the later it got. But on that day, the shadows did not grow any longer. The sun refused to go to bed. Below, children were playing, laughing and skipping and jumping, although it was now long past their playtime. Parents, being parents, looked with worry at their watches. They were puzzled. What should they do? The clock showed it was past playtime, but the sun still stood at playtime. In faraway villages, parents were saying, "Children, it is time for bed." And children, being children, responded, "But the sun is still shining brightly." Mamas and papas looked at each other. Then they looked up to the sky and they wondered, should we send our children to bed? It is late, but the sun is still at midday spot. It's all so confusing. The world was upside down. It was getting later now. It was getting so late that the moon and the stars were ready to appear. The moon whispered sternly to the sun, "You must go to bed immediately. It is my time to be awake." The moon warned the sun, "If you do not go to bed now, the children will never go to bed. Neither will the animals, nor the plants. The world will turn upside down." But the sun shook his head. "Look," he said, "the children love it. They want me to stay. They want to have more fun." The moon was starting to lose patience. She urged the sun more sternly. "Go to bed," said the moon. "No," said the sun. Now a furious wind joined in. He shrieked in an angry voice, "To bed, to bed, to bed." But the sun stood firm. What could the moon do? The world was upside down. Animals that were supposed to sleep during the day and come out at night kept on sleeping. Flowers that were supposed to close their buds when the sun set stayed open. Little bugs that were supposed to come out at night stayed in their little homely holes. The world was upside down. The moon asked the wind, "Please help me to change the sun's mind." The wind tried a different approach. He said softly to the sun, "Please go to bed now, little sun. You must be very tired after so much shining." But it's not working. "To bed now. To bed now." The wind then gasped strongly. But this did not work either. Then the wind howled stronger and louder, causing a wave of air to sweep the earth. Mamas, papas, children, other leggeds and winged creatures scrambled for cover. Worried parents called their children inside. It was getting later and later, and children were getting tired. Some were even dozing off now. What about whistling a lullaby to the sun? Twinkled one little star to the wailing wind. I guess I could try, huffed the wind. So the wind began to whistle a soothing, slow melody. It was the same bedtime lullaby the sun's mother whistled to him when he was a little pleased. The sun's eyelids began to get heavier and heavier and heavier. The sun couldn't stay awake any longer. He finally collapsed into bed. The moon and the stars returned. The animals who stayed awake during the day could also now fall asleep. The flowers could close their buds and finally sleep. The night animals could come out. But because the sun had gone to bed so late, the next morning he was so tired he could not wake up. The moon whispered to the sun, "Wake up now, lazy bones." The sun did not hear her. The wind whistled noisily, but the sun still did not wake up. Although it was supposed to be morning now, it remained night. The world was upside down. On earth, day animals remained sleeping. The flower buds that were supposed to open remained closed. Children remained in bed. Because they went to sleep so late, they were too tired to wake up for breakfast. Those children who did manage to open their sleepy eyes closed them again, thinking it was still night because the sun was not up. Because the sun did not wake up, the flowers did not spread open their petals. Bees and butterflies stayed in their beds because the flowers were still asleep. The birds did not sing to welcome the morning, and although it was late morning, it was as dark as the middle of the night. The world was upside down. The moon and the stars shouted at the sun to wake up. They were tired now also, and they wanted to go to bed after being up all night. The wind wailed to wake up the sun. The birds chirped loudly. Dogs barked. Cats mewed. Cocks crowed. All the noise finally made the sun to wake up. With a jolt, the sun woke up. Because the sun did not wake up in time, because he went to bed so late, the world was upside down. Everything and everyone was late. Parents and children woke up late. Parents went to work late. Children went to school late. The birds' morning singing was late. The insects' buzzing was late. The flowers were late in opening their buds. Everybody, including the sun, was grumpy, sleepy, and confused. Everyone was angry with the sun. The sun was embarrassed. He promised he would never again go to bed so late. "I will always go to sleep on time and wake up on time," said the sleepy sun to the upside-down world. That was the end of the story.
We say thank you to Professor William Gumede for that beautiful story. If you're still with us, thank you for persevering, and we will hopefully catch up on time in the course of the rest of the program. As I said, this segment of the program has a mixture of things. There are some showcasing of library activity videos, messages of support, as well as further readings. And I hope that you're going to continue enjoying them with us. Next up, we have another video from the Joburg libraries on their library services that they offer, showcasing why libraries matter and indeed why librarians matter. Stand by.
Since now you are in our library, let me tell you a little bit of the services that we offer. Joburg libraries have been introducing a variety of digital platforms to support and empower the citizens of Johannesburg. Through our social media platform, Joburg Libraries Facebook page, patrons are able to access digital programs and services. Some of the programs provided by Region B are digital storytelling, which is using ICT to tell story. Job searching skills, exposing users to different job searching platforms and helping them create profiles on them. Interview skills, which is showing users the do's and don'ts when you're in an interview. Also skills on how to detect fake news, which is important in the era that we're in right now. Also including online courses such as Google Digital Skills for Africa and IBM Digital Nation Africa. Obviously, mobile literacy, such as convenient apps for everyday use. Also, how to come up with strong and easy to remember passwords for different online platforms. Digital literacy, in particular, African Storybook, showing people how to create and publish stories on African Storybook. Substance abuse awareness, programs that aim at helping people that are struggling with substance abuse. Awareness on calendar events, such as Library Week, World Book Day, Africa Month, and Mandela Month. And obviously Overdrive. Now Overdrive can be accessed by both members and non-members of the library. Library members use their library card number to access Overdrive, while non-library members will have to fill an online form to get a library number which they can use to access Overdrive. With the integration of ICT in service delivery in Joburg libraries, these digital programs help support our communities and make libraries relevant and solidify that libraries do matter.
The amazing Joburg libraries and Mthethwa and his colleagues. They're really doing some sterling work, and if you follow them on Facebook, you can see all of these amazing things that they do. If you have been following them, you would have seen he's even roped in his brother of late to do things. So well done to the city of Johannesburg libraries. I'm now going to read a message of support from the SALI Trust chairperson and former LIASA president, Mrs. Rachel Morey. On behalf of the SALI Trust, I extend the message of support to LIASA on the occasion of the launch of South African Library Week 2021. The COVID-19 pandemic has impacted greatly on the entire world, including libraries. Over the years, libraries survived and flourished despite many natural disasters. Wars, pandemics, including the relentless developments in IT, which threatened the continued existence of libraries. But libraries as institutions tend to be responsive and innovative. They use technology to improve their library services in response to their community's needs. The pandemic and lockdown accelerated the trend towards online services, which libraries embraced despite dwindling budgets. Today, we congratulate LIASA for using technology to launch South African Library Week 2021. It is another example of innovation and determination not to lose an opportunity to highlight the critical role played by libraries in communities despite disruptions by COVID-19. LIASA has since 2001 used South African Library Week to raise the profile of libraries and highlight their role in community development, thus strengthening our country's young democracy. South African Library Week unites the LIS sector annually to celebrate libraries and the difference they make in the lives of citizens. LIASA strategically chose South African Library Week to celebrate it around Human Rights Day on the 21st of March in order to raise awareness that freedom of access to information, as enshrined in our Bill of Rights, is a basic human right. Thus, libraries as providers of free access to information are promoted as a basic right for each community. One of the highlights of South African Library Week is the inspiring themes LIASA provides. The theme underpins the week-long activities aimed at promoting the importance of libraries, marketing their services, advancing literacy, thus celebrating the country's intellectual and literacy heritage. The 2021 South African Library Week theme is Libraries Matter. It is an inspiring theme appropriate to remind everyone that despite the pandemic and its challenges being high upon the government agenda, libraries also matter. Although the theme consists of only 2 words, the message is quite loaded. Libraries matter. They are the heartbeat of each community. The SALI Trust joins LIASA in emphasizing that libraries matter. Hence, the Trust will continue to assist with the development of libraries and librarians by making funding available for projects that cover a range of activities ranging from promoting literacy to advancing research in information science. We wish LIASA a fruitful South African Library Week. Libraries do matter. That's on behalf of the chairperson of the SALI Trust, Mrs. Rachel Moray. The next message of support is from the Committee of Higher Education Libraries of South Africa, CHELSA, and we will be showing a video by Dr. Shirlene Neerputh, who is the chairperson of CHELSA. Please stand by.
The President of LIASA, Mrs. Nikki Krauster, Executive of LIASA, and honored members of LIASA. I am Dr. Shirlene Neerputh, the Chairperson of CHELSA, Committee of Higher Education Libraries in South Africa. I hope each of you are well and safe in this pandemic. As we celebrate Library Week in South Africa with the theme, Why Libraries Matter, I wish to acknowledge and honor librarians and their services to humanity, including the healthcare sector, which has kept us alive and well during this challenging pandemic. The theme, Why Libraries Matter, is very applicable. CHELSA has a vision about transforming existing library practices to respond to new realities and transform higher education sector through visionary leadership and visible transformation. ICT, spurred on by the internet, has driven libraries long before the pandemic to transit to cloud computing. The pandemic has effected a deep desire for librarians to remain agile and push the frontiers of virtual realities in support of student learning. Libraries take on a new significance by embracing an accelerated multimodal, multimedia access to learning and study materials, which also require digital sensory skills and abilities. At a time when human interaction has become very precious, libraries offer place and space for open access, reconnection with option of digital social connections and communication, libraries offer academic and information literacies to enhance digital sensory abilities and knowledge production. I thank you, LIASA, and dear librarians, for making libraries matter in this revolutionary times and during this pandemic. Please keep safe. Thank you.
We say thank you to CHELSA and Chairperson Shalene Neerpeth for that message of support. Our next speaker is a young poet by the name of Imaan Suliman. Those of you who managed to attend the launch of Library Week last year would have been inspired by her poetry rendered at that event. She joins us yet again for this launch of Library Week. Imaan Suliman, she's 15 years old, and poetry is her all-time favorite that has come from a love for reading and hence writing. She's a member of a local library from the age of 2, and her 2 self-published poetry books has earned her 2 awards. This, of course, makes her a 2-time award-winning author. She also launched a library in Shepang Daycare Center in Tembisa, and UNISA was a bigger sponsor, among others, such as book drives she carried out. She started writing at the age of 11 when her father passed away. This has helped her a lot in coping with her grief. She is ready to publish her 3rd poetry book. Her goal is that through this, she hopes to reach out to the youth and adults too. We now present Imaan Suliman reading a poem, in support of South African Library Week.
Good day, one and all. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Imaan Suliman. I would like to thank the amazing people at LIASA for giving me this amazing opportunity once again to be a part of this program. I also would like to thank none other than Madam Mukhadi for always blessing me with these amazing opportunities. I can think of no better way to introduce myself than as a poet. Poetry has been my passion, my heart, and my soul for quite some time now. I started writing at the age of 11 after my dad sadly passed away. It was a wonderful way to cope with the grief and the trauma, and it has brought me a very far way. I have also written 2 poetry books, The Fire Inside Me and A Warrior's Heart, and I am so thrilled to say that these have actually won me 2 awards. And I also found out that our theme today is Libraries Matter. And I can think of no better theme than this very one. Libraries have always been such a big part of my life. I was a member of my local library from the age of 2 years old. In fact, there's an experience that I would like to relate to this specific topic. Just about 2 years ago, I was part of an organization that sponsored a library to the rural community of Tembisa. I worked with some amazing people as well as UNISA, who sponsored the bulk of the books. I have actually received word from the head of the Tembisa community that it was a light for them during the lockdown. It was flourishing, and I am so happy that I could have given back to the community. Due to COVID, some of the community work has actually ceased, but once everything clears up and settles down again, we're going to resume our work. I have actually written a poem about libraries and books, which I think we really need to preserve because libraries are a shrine, they are a temple. So I would like to read the poem, and I hope you like it, and I hope you can relate. It is often we find that one life is not enough. It is not enough for all the colors we wish to see, for all the stars we yearn to wish upon. But between the pages of a mighty book, we might find those hues and dreams. We might turn the corners of pages into our homes. We might shape families from the images of characters. Books might be our homes, but the home of a book is a library. A sanctuary for the one who seeks to forget his worries or to be remembered by his words. So together, we must preserve these temples, these homes. For through books, we can live 1,000 lives and become 1,000 people. So savor every word in a book in a library, and every library on the face of our earth. Thank you.
We say thank you to our young poet, Imaan Suliman. I had the privilege of meeting her and her mom last year, and she was truly inspiring. That segment, by the way, was sponsored by UKS, one of our long-standing sponsors for many LIASA activities, including the Librarian of the Year. So we thank UKS for that sponsorship. And we thank Imaan for her contribution to this program today. Next up, we will showcase another set of library activities, this time by the primary school, Laerskool, Rustenburg. And they have submitted a video, so stand by for the showcasing of this video, showcasing school libraries.
Laerskool Rustenburg maak sedert 1921 op akademies, sport en kultuurgebied. Maar wat maak dat ons ritme anders klink? Laerskool is 'n nuwe huiswerkskool waar akademie gedurende skooltyd voorkeur kry. Maar sonder is dit lees wat koning kraai. Die inligtingseentrum gee die leesbaas aan en hier kan alle laerskool ook hard wys. Leesprojekte kry vlerke en elke laerskool word hier as 'n topleser gekroon. Die skool met hart sê toe dat geen kind alleen voel tydens pouse nie. Die vriendskapsbankies om die inligtingseentrum en die omgee yskas is 'n inisiatief wat van Laerskool Rustenburg die voorloper maak as 'n omgee skool. Hier trek almal saam om gelukkige beleese leerders die toekoms in te stuur.
We say thank you to Rene Skumbi and the Rustenburg Primary School, and specifically the Library and Media Center for that video. Rene, of course, for those who work in the city of Cape Town, will know that she's joining the Western Cape branch and the city of Cape Town very shortly. I will now read out a message of support by Professor Mpho Nwepe, who is the chair of the Department of Information Science. He is also currently the chair of the Heads of Library School Forum. As we celebrate the 2021 South African Library Week in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic that is ravaging our society, we should remember the old adage that every cloud has a silver lining. While it has taken many lives, the pandemic has offered a window of opportunity not to be missed for the library and information sector to roll out virtual library services to all corners of the country. As libraries matter, it is an opportunity for the sector to repackage information compatible to the small screens so that everyone can access such services from libraries without walls. In this regard, members of the public can be able to quench the knowledge thirst irrespective of their location. This is indeed an opportunity to parachute the LIS profession to new heights and uncharted territories. At the same time, the chasm that exists between those who are in the national hub and those who are in the national periphery will be bridged. As LIS professionals who have embraced and worked with technology, we have a home ground advantage to reassert ourselves and remove our noble profession from its nadir and integrate it in the mainstream of both public and private sector. This way, every citizen will know that libraries matter because it is the colossal from which those who are in the know or want to be in the know source information from the library. Compounding the COVID-19 pandemic in our country and the world at large is the era of post-truth, misinformation, and disinformation, as well as anti-intellectualism that is undermining faith in the professional integrity of all knowledge fields, including libraries. Therefore, libraries matter as these institutions, in the case of national, public, and community libraries, and divisions in the case of academic libraries and some special libraries, are best placed to providing information and evidence of facts to counter the misinformation and disinformation. We wish LIASA well as we celebrate South African Library Week and confirm in our message of support that libraries matter. We thank Professor Nwepe for that message of support. Our next message of support, which I will also be reading out, comes from the President of Knowledge Management South Africa, Mr. Kulani Choke. On behalf of Knowledge Management South Africa, I would like to extend my congratulations to LIASA on its celebration of South African Library Week. Knowledge Management South Africa pledges its full support to South African Library Week, which is celebrated between 15 and 21 March 2021. Libraries play a significant role in our society, including facilitating the storage and sharing of knowledge. Knowledge sharing has become a crucial activity in democratizing access to valuable and enabling knowledge for our young democracy. In the 2021 State of the Nation address, President Ramaphosa said 2021 was no ordinary year. Thus, it calls for innovative ways for libraries to support the government and citizens on how to tackle the unordinary year. During the hard lockdown, many students, learners, and community members, especially in previously disadvantaged communities, missed the opportunities to have a place to study, access to books, and the internet, as well as collaborate with fellow learners. This underlines the significant role libraries play in our societal transformational project. Thus, South African Library Week reminds us of the important role libraries play in our communities. The sector must generate financial resources to help libraries acquire the technologies of the fourth industrial revolution in order to shape the skills for the future of work. We cannot allow future generations to be deprived of the value and excitement of library use, particularly in communities where recreational books are an absolute luxury. Given their knowledge of the challenges and the culture of the local community, Knowledge Management South Africa believes that the library community has the mindset, skills, and tools to enable the future development. Knowledge Management South Africa looks forward to working with LIASA and other associated organizations to strengthen the information value chain as we tackle the triple challenges of our democracy. Once again, thank you for celebrating South African Library Week. Mr. Kulani Choke, who is the Chairperson of Knowledge Management South Africa. We now have another reading up, and I think very fitting following that particular message from Knowledge Management South Africa, which also carries the thread through from our keynote address from our minister, as well as the message delivered by the NCLIS chairperson about access and technology, providing a bridge to that lack of access. Our next speaker is Lorato Trok, who is an early literacy consultant and expert in developing reading for pleasure books for young children, especially in African languages. Lorato is a qualified teacher and librarian, having started a career as a librarian at the Robert Moffat Library in her hometown of Kuruman in the Northern Cape. She is also published author of 17 children's picture books and biographer of young adults. Non-fiction books originated in both Setswana and English and translated into other South African languages. She's the two-time recipient of the Association of Non-Fiction and Academic Authors of South Africa UNFASA Writing Grant. That was in 2017 and 2020, supported by the Norwegian Embassy to write the biography of Rosina Sidibane Modiba, South Africa's first Black female athlete to compete against white athletes during the apartheid years, and set multiple records, as well as a book, The Forgotten Scientist, The Story of Saul Sithole, is about the untold story of a pioneering Black scientist who made a great contribution to the fields of anthropology and ornithology in South Africa. The latter book has just been published, and it gives me great pleasure to have Lorato Trok read to us. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Lorato Trok. I'm an author of many books, and I'm very happy to be here with you. Thank you very much to LIASA for inviting me. But I'm very proud to have this book now that I've just written about this Black scientist, Saul Sithole, who was a scientist in 1900s and so 1920s and so on, and he was just never acknowledged. And I just thought that it was very important that we know our history as South Africans, because there's very little that our children know about what happened in our country, and also that a lot of people who look like me have had skills for a very long time and have had very little opportunities for them to be outstanding humans, as we can see in the world. And Saul Sithole's story is about that. And I'm going to be reading to you just a few things about how outstanding he was. And he only had a grade 8 education, standard 6 at the time. I think it's grade 8. But he was brilliant. Can you imagine if he had all the opportunities like everyone else? So I'm going to read a little bit about him as well. So Saul Sithole learned many skills, and he was given new responsibilities at the museum, working with fossils, as his work was so precise. And Professor Thekere, who worked with Saul Sithole, said that, you know, that's how smart he was. Even he taught even people who were professors, even who went to school to study science, and he didn't even study science. And he would also come up with ideas for him. So this is one example of an idea he came with when he was working on fossils that were stinking at the museum. Sithole made a concoction that he said would offset the stench of the rotting meat, because he was working with dead birds and dead animals. And Professor Thekere remembers going into the room the next day, and to his surprise, the smell was gone. And Saul will just say, just one drop, Francis, and it will work. So he came up with even great scientific ideas that none of the learned scientists could come up with. That's how brilliant he was. And here is Saul Sithole. I'm not sure if he can show very well. Here he is in front of Mrs. Place at the museum, where he was working for 62 years of his life. And I'm going to continue to read about what he did as well. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the history. South Africa's history of racial oppression to the majority of its population through colonial rule and repressive apartheid laws dashed the dreams of many African men and women whose contributions are forgotten or credited to the white people they worked with. Race was an impediment to what Sithole could have been. Despite his contribution to the scientific knowledge and all his accomplishments, he was still a black man in South Africa and in a white man territory of science. Exactly as I was explaining that, I mean, you can imagine what would have become of Saul Sithole if he wasn't denied what he did. And I'm going to be reading to you what Professor Thekere also, who wrote the foreword for this book, what he said about Saul Sithole could have been. That there is one thing that I want to say about Saul in the context of Charles Darwin, the eminent naturalist who developed ideas about evolution more than 150 years ago. Saul was doing exactly the kind of thing that Darwin was involved with during the famous voyage of the Beagle, a ship which traveled around the world between 1831 and 1836, and it stopped briefly in Cape Town. During that voyage of exploration, Darwin collected many birds such as finches from the Galapagos Islands in the Pacific Ocean. Like Saul, he had to skin the specimens. When he was almost 20, Darwin had learned the skill from a Negro, a freed slave called John, who adopted the surname Edmonston, and who found a living by skinning birds at the museum in Edinburgh, where Darwin was based initially, before going to Cambridge University. Both John and Saul are unsung heroes whose service to science is only now being recognized. So, I mean, if you can imagine, like Professor is saying, what Saul could have been, that Saul Sithole has been referred to as an unsung hero, but you know, this is we said this is an inspirational book which will stimulate young budding scientists to hone their interest and pursue a career in science passionately, whether they focus on birds, on mammals, fossils, or other aspects of the diversity of life on our precious planet, Earth. Charles Darwin, among others, would be proud of Saul. And to his mind, he said, that is no exaggeration. So this is just a testament to what I was trying to get into bringing Saul Sithole's book or story to life, that it is not about that the science that was used against brown and black people during the times of apartheid, that they were of lesser IQ than white people. It was that they did not have opportunities that were similar to their white counterparts. Had Saul Sithole been given the opportunity to be a fully fledged scientist, you can imagine what other scientific discoveries he could have done at the time. And when I was interviewing Saul's family about his life and his story and his work and what he has achieved, there is so much more than this book could have ever put together. And listening to Saul's only daughter, Zondi Zita, who unfortunately died before the book could come out in early 2020. She died February 2020. The book came out 2020 of December. And she knew, when she was telling me the story about her father, you could tell that she also knew the science. She learned from her father about the scientific work of birds and fossils and mammals and everything else. And you can imagine that had they had opportunities or equal opportunities, they could have been a family of, a generational family, a generation in one family were generations of scientists. Because when I spoke to Saul's granddaughter, who also passed away in December of 2020, but I was so happy that she got to touch the book, and Saul's great-grandson, that they all knew about fossils and birds and the scientific, all of what Saul has done. It could have been a great family of generations of scientists coming from this family about, on birds and mammals and animals and so on. But because of the lack of opportunities, equal opportunities, they were unable to pursue science like Saul did in those times, although Saul did manage to be an unsung scientist at the time, and even in current South Africa, where really there isn't much, there's absolutely nothing about him on the history books, or where he used to work for 62 years at the Transvaal Museum, which is now called the Natural Museum of History and so on. So I'm really, really, really hoping that this book is going to open doors for young budding scientists of this country to follow on Saul's footsteps of being dedicated to science and his love of scientific work. And I mean, if you are going to read this book, I don't want to give away everything in this book, but it is just a wonder with the world of science and fossils. And I mean, the fact that Saul was there when Mrs. Place was found, which is something that we have never heard before. We have heard so many times about Mrs. Place, but there has never been Saul's name associated with the finding of this fossil ever. And I've got this in this book. We are going to see the kind of work that Saul has done and I'm very proud to have brought his story to life, and I hope that you'll enjoy the book. You get the book. It's not only for young adults. I have written it for young adults, but it's not only for young adults. It's a great book for research, for scientific research, for scientists, for university students who want to study science or who are studying science, to know about the life of Saul Sithole and the others that I've also talked about briefly in the book, who are also Black and some from across the continent as well, who have done great scientific work like Saul did. Thank you very much, and I hope you're going to enjoy the book.
We say thank you very much to Lorato Trok. That particular reading was sponsored by Nevada LMS. As you would know, they're also one of our traditional sponsors and also involved in the Librarian of the Year program. We realize that time is moving along, and we intend to cut out some of the portions of the program we originally intended. But in order not to do a disservice to anybody, the portions that we are not showing as part of the launch event will be available on the online program, and there will be a link for everybody to be able to see any messages that we might not be showcasing in what is left of the time. We do understand that there is load shedding happening in the country, which is affecting people's ability to participate, but also that it is quite a long time after we intended to end the program for today. So next up, we have a message of support. Our last message of support for the day on the program itself, and that is from the South African Book Development Council, who created a video message of support. So over to the SABDC.
Hello everyone, my name is Lorato Sithole and I am part of the South African Book Fair programming team for the 4th year running in celebration of the South African Library Week, which is taking place from the 15th of March until the 21st of March. I would just like to let you know that the South African Book Fair will be celebrating Library Week and the incredible, unwavering commitment of libraries and librarians in South Africa. And we hope that all of South Africans will join us in doing so.
I'm Sherry Davidson. I'm also with the South African Book Fair, also part of the programming team and all the other bits and bobs. And definitely, I hope that the whole of South Africa will join us in celebrating the joys of reading, the magic that books bring, and the contribution that libraries fulfill in this role. I think that libraries are an incredible resource for the communities that they find themselves in. And that they are centers for knowledge, for learning, for culture, for record keeping, and they have been through the ages. And I think that they have been just as affected by this pandemic as the rest of the world. And so their commitment really has been incredible, just to bringing books, resources, and excitement to people.
Yes, and I mean, libraries are the cornerstone for the development of healthy reading habits in any nation, and they are not just limited to brick and mortar. You can build a beautiful library for yourself and your family at home, because we all know that if we want to develop a reading nation, we have to start by being families which read together. So you can see at my back, I have a magnificent bookcase and I enjoy reading. My family enjoys reading, and I do preach the love of reading as a hobby, especially.
That is incredible. I remember growing up and enjoying spending so much time in the library. I could find a way to escape, just, you know, sinking into a couch or into a chair with a fantastic book and spending hours really in the kind of comfort and safety of that environment. So I hope that the rest of South Africa will join us and celebrate during South African Library Week.
We say thank you to the South African Book Development Council for that message of support, one of our partners in the last couple of years, and one we look forward to continuing into the future. That bookcase is very tempting there to want to see what is on it. I'll go and scrutinize the video afterwards and zoom in to see what is on there. For those of you who maybe took note when Imaan was on earlier, it was kind of like, oh, I see a Sarah Mars there, the new one. So yeah, those of you who love doing that, I look forward to zooming in on that bookcase that was on that message of support. We're very near the end, so bear with us just a little while longer. Next up, sponsored by Sabinet, we have the amazing Natalia Molebatsi. Natalia is a Pan-African feminist poet, writer, MC and recording artist. Her CDs, Come As You Are, Poems for Four Strings, and Natalia Molebatsi and the Soul Making are a fusion of poetry and a variety of music styles, both available on iTunes. Natalia is the editor of We Are, a poetry anthology, and Wild Imperfections, an anthology of womanist poems. She's the author of Sado Dance and Elephant Woman's Song. Her academic writing is included in, among other journals, Scrutiny 2, the Rhodes Journalism Review, Agenda Feminist Media, and Muziki. Natalia has performed poetry and presented creative writing workshops in over 15 countries on 5 continents. She is the marketing coordinator at the UNISA Library and is currently reading for a PhD in performance studies at the School of Communication at the Northwestern University in Chicago. As we all know, we are experiencing the scourge of gender-based violence at unprecedented levels, not just in South Africa, but worldwide. If you look at what is currently happening in the UK, I hope that you're going to be inspired by this reading by Natalia, and that it will inspire us to continue the fight against gender-based violence in a profession that is still predominantly occupied by females.
You are a song singing in the deepest voice of my people, a lullaby cusping tears, an Amandla song to every child of the storm. Someone said that women like you are the wind beneath the broken wing of my people. Another one said that women like you are the mending season of our aching. Women like you open doors to new ways of knowing. Women like you who give and give and give their last breath to ignite fires called revolution. Even when they force feed you the rules of silence, you fight for your story to be told in the season of your voice, and inside your body reside the melodies of our people. You with an uncontainable wail that grows louder and larger than any tight grip of oppression. With words that force open the doors of a world that will never be ready for our kind. Even when you wrap yourself around your moon with secrets, conversations, and moments of endearment. The same moon that will welcome you on an orbit of black magic woman wonderment. You will let this world know that you loved her more, that you love her more, that you will always love her more than she loves you. How do I ever thank you for your harmed and banned and sometimes, many times, your jailed and unacknowledged dreams? Your dreams, your vision, your dreams, your vision are the gifts to my bag of memory, to my bag of the journey ahead. And I will see your voice. I will see your vision and craft tomorrow's songs of healing.
We say thank you to Natalia for that inspiring poem. The first time I saw it, I was really blown away by it. And again, watching it today, really inspiring. We have one more insert to show you, and I think kind of sums up the morning for us. So please stand by for a video that was produced by UCT, showcasing why libraries matter. Thank you.
So the way I see where the libraries are at the moment and why they matter is really much they're your starting point for knowledge. They're kind of like the intersection that gives you so many different options to go to, and it has the people, the expertise, and the infrastructure to kind of guide you in the directions you can take.
As librarians, we will bend over backwards to help you through something that you're struggling with in your studies.
I get up every morning to go to work because I love helping students.
Information literacy is important for students. It's an important skill for them to make sure that they are lifelong learners. So to be able to actually afford them that opportunity, it makes me feel good.
We're open to all bona fide researchers. We contribute to research and academic endeavours. We get requests from architects, from filmmakers, to commercial endeavours.
We make your studies and parts of your life easier.
When the digital revolution came and they needed an icon for the libraries, they're like, oh, we'll just put a bunch of books. And it feels like that is the image that got burned in people's head is, you know, the libraries for the books. And I mean, that's how a lot of it starts.
Our libraries have changed immensely.
We have listening rooms where you can watch a DVD, you can listen to music. We have a vast CD collection and vinyl collections.
Manuscripts and archives, photography collections, both new, old, contemporary.
And it is not a place which is quiet anymore. It's a buzz place. Students love to interact with each other, do group work, and that's what libraries are nowadays. They are meeting places and collaborative spaces.
Well, libraries do matter. Without libraries, we have no verifiable sources of information other than the internet. And I'm afraid to say, as your trusty librarian, you can't always trust what you read on the internet.
Because in our daily lives, we see how much people are misinformed. I will actually point that out. Libraries, they are critical in terms of making sure that people have the information about things that concern them and that are important to them.
So it would be easier to search on Google anything that you need, but would it be the relevant information that you need?
We try and teach students how to find information, even if it should be on Google, to read critically, that's all part of it, to be able to evaluate websites.
Google is huge, it's humongous. Why you need people like me and why you need the library is somebody to kind of help point you in the right direction. Because Google doesn't necessarily do that. We are the ones who kind of do a little bit of organizing, curating, identifying, describing, just making it easy to find and to discover.
Our library at UCT matters because it provides students, staff, and it provides members of the public an opportunity to really engage with what the university stands for. The development of knowledge at a world-class level and the improvement of self through lifelong learning.
So the way I see where the
we say thank you to UCT Libraries for that video. And I think a fitting end to the program today. Once again, I just want to say, apologies to those where we've unfortunately had to cut on the program in order to make up some time. but we will showcase the segments that we did cut via some of our social media channels, and we'll direct people to have a look at any segments we might have cut. I just have a couple of things to wrap up the session with. I've been saying some time throughout this morning that Libraries Matter is the theme of South African Library Week this year. But let's not forget that a library is nothing without its librarians, and therefore librarians matter. And in order to illustrate Librarians Matter, we will be running a competition that starts from South African Library Week and will culminate on a Librarians Day in July, where we will showcase the librarians who have made the world a wonderful place for libraries and librarians by persevering through the pandemic and showcasing what librarians have been doing through this time. We will be sharing more information as we go along, and so please do look out for that as well. Do not forget about our SA Library competition, which runs until the 22nd. And these are available for you on the website for you to have a look. And there are Mindex vouchers up for grabs, e-vouchers up for grabs, sponsored by Mindex, for which we are really grateful. And that leads me on to the very last portion of our program, which is the vote of thanks. And as usual, none of what you saw this morning could have been possible without the support and assistance of our partners. We would like to thank the following sponsors for this year's launch of South African Library Week: the Department of Sports, Arts and Culture, without whose generous donation this morning would not have been possible, and who have spurred us on to provide a launch event as well as the Indaba late last year, in ways that have defied what the pandemic has brought upon us. We continue thanking the support of UKS, Sabinet, Nevada LMS, as well as Van Schaik and Mindex in providing support in us bringing you this launch event this morning. To the team that assisted me in putting all of this together in the national office, Anna-Marie Goosen, Lebo, Mashile, Kagiso Ledwaba, our PRO, Nara Marat, our secretary, Mohadi Sinyolo, and Larsen Nike, and not last but not least, Teresa Skuman. I say thank you very much for your dedication in bringing this to fruition. Your support has been amazing, and this couldn't have been done without your input. To our guest speaker, the amazing Lebo Mashile, I still get goosebumps when I think about that video she did. I saw the messages coming through, and I know that everybody was equally amazed by it. Thank you very much for being our guest speaker and for being our ambassador for SA Library Week. To our National Minister of the Department of Sports, Arts and Culture, Mr. Nathi and Mthethwa, we thank you very much for gracing us with your presence this morning. We really do appreciate it, as well as your message of support. To our authors and our poets for their readings, Professor William Gumede, Ms. Imaan Suliman, Ms. Natalia Molebatsi, and Ms. Lorato Trok, we do thank you very much. To our various institutions that provided videos for this event, including, amongst others, the City of Cape Town Library and Information Services Department, Joburg Libraries, Laerskool, Rustenburg, Rhodes University, UCT, and the University of Pretoria. We do thank you for your contributions. To our various strategic partners for their messages of support, amongst others, IFLA, AfLIA, NCLIS, the National Library for the Blind, the SALI Trust, CHELSA, the Forum for the Heads of Laerskool, Knowledge Management South Africa, and South African Book Development Council. We thank you very much for your warm messages of support during this morning. To my colleagues on the LIASA Exco, as well as the LIASA Representative Council, thank you very much for your continued support of the efforts that we are putting into doing these programs for you. and to our broader membership. Last but not least, to the participants who attended this launch of South African Library Week, thank you for bearing with us through these technological difficulties, and as well as persevering with us to the end of this program, those of you who are still around. Continue sharing what you are doing for South African Library Week by using the official hashtags SALW 2021 and Libraries Matter. I wish you all the best for South African Library Week, and until I see you again, goodbye.